Hey, my friend, this is probably the most important video I will ever make on XRP and Ripple. Honestly, it is really the most important video. I posted this video about 10 days ago. I had to delete it and edit it because I realized it was such an important video that I had to really make the video a lot tighter. And so it's going to be even better than it was. This video is strictly dedicated to showing that the regulated liability network, the regulated settlement network, the unified ledger, the shared ledger concept, and the Finternet, also known as the regulated internet of value, it's all the XRP ledger, okay? So these are 6 terminologies that the central bankers and the major corporations are using. They're using these different terminologies so that we can't figure out it's the XRP ledger. So in this video, I prove that it's all the XRP ledger. And the reason this is the most important video I'll ever make is because the XRP community is really confused about where's XRP's role in some of these networks, in the shared ledger concept and unified ledger. Nobody had realized that this was all the XRP ledger until I made a video, started talking about this few months ago. So again, it's really important because this shows the whole world that literally it's all the XRP ledger, right? The internet of value is the XRP ledger. Now, Stellar is going to play a role in the sense that it's more peer-to-peer. I know they are involved with cross-border. I'm not trying to discredit Stellar, but the main internet of value here and the unified ledger, shared ledger, like I said, the regulated liability network, Finternet, and the regulated settlement network, it's all the XRP ledger. So thank you so much for everything you've been doing, trying to share the videos. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the support. I love you guys. I really appreciate it. So let's get into the video right away. Before we do though, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and I appreciate everything, guys. Let's get into it. So right here, Gilbert Verdian, when he's talking about the regulated liability network, he says, we also partnered with R3, who is bringing in the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets will reside. So he just finished saying that they provide the programmability, interoperability, and the banking grade API for the project. And now he continues to talk.
We're also partnering with R3 on the project, which are bringing in the shared ledger where all the tokenized assets will reside.
So Quant is partnering with R3, who's bringing the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets reside. Tony McLaughlin from Citibank said that when he was talking about the regulated liability network, City Digital Dispatch, episode 1, regulated liability network, this was about maybe 6 weeks ago. He was talking with Ryan Rugg, head of digital assets for Treasury and Trade for Citi. This is where he talks about 25,000 data centers, 25,000 databases, separate islands of data. He's talking about banks, how they all have different data centers. And shared ledger and blockchain, you've got a common database, essentially. So the question is there a possibility to migrate the traditional banking system? So take the same kinds of institution, take the central banks, commercial banks, and fintechs and migrate them onto a shared ledger. What did Gilbert Verdian said? He said, the shared ledger. We're partnering with R3. They're bringing in the shared ledger. And here he says, and that's what the regulated liability network essentially is, the RLN. So now we know that the shared ledger and the regulated liability network is exactly the same thing. So this is a document from Deutsche Bundesbank in July 2023. In this document, they're going to admit that the regulated liability network, when it was originally mentioned by Citi, it was actually called the regulated internet of value. Let's start at the beginning. In essence, the regulated liability network is an interoperable network of commercial banks and central bank liabilities. The aim of the infrastructure is to improve national and international payments by using distributed ledger technology. The concept originates in the article entitled The Regulated Internet of Value, published by Citigroup in 2021. So the first time was ever mentioned, the regulated liability network, the first time was ever mentioned, they called it the regulated internet of value. But they stopped saying that. They said, we can't call it the regulated internet of value because everybody's going to know that's XRP ledger. That's Ripple and the XRP ledger. So we can't call it that. So then they started calling it the regulated liability network. And for the US, they call it the regulated settlement network. Or they say shared ledger technology, a unified ledger, and they're changing names every time so that we can't figure out what the heck it is. Oh, is XRP ledger involved? Is it Quant? No. So bear with me. So watch right here. Right here. The Bank for International Settlements, BIS, describes the idea of a common programmable platform on which tokenized forms of money circulate as holding great promise. Instead of regulated liability network, instead of RLN, the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, uses the term unified ledger. Let me say that again. Instead of regulated liability network, the Bank for International Settlement uses the term unified ledger and stresses the importance of governance of a common platform in which the central banks would have to play an important role in a position paper, the German bank. So now, this document is proving that the BIS calls the Regulated Liability Network, they call it the Unified Ledger. So now we've got confirmation, if you've been following carefully here, the shared ledger, Gilbert Verdian said they partnered with R3 who's bringing the shared ledger. Tony McLaughlin confirmed that the shared ledger and the Regulated Liability Network is the same thing. I showed you a document saying that the Regulated Liability Network and the Regulated Internet of Value, technically the Internet of Value, is the same thing, which Ripple built the Internet of Value. We know it's Ripple. So shared ledger, Regulated Liability Network, and the Internet of Value, called the Regulated Internet of Value, is all the same thing. Now I've just showed you in this document right here that the Unified Ledger and the Regulated Liability Network is the same thing as well. So all four are the same. Shared Ledger, Regulated Liability Network, Regulated Internet of Value, and the Unified Ledger are all the same thing. Got it? Got it, guys? Good? Keep watching, my friends. All right, so in this document here, it says right here in blue, the Regulated Liability Network, it's a bit cut off there, the way that it was copied, I'm not sure why, but the Regulated Liability Network could bring several benefits. For example, the RLN may offer potential for a new global settlement infrastructure based on regulated issuers and instruments that could support both domestic and cross-border use cases. Isn't that interesting? Cross-border use cases. Where did we hear that a trillion times? XRP Ledger, right? Ripple. By including central bank money from multiple jurisdictions, it has the potential to create a global real-time gross settlement. So the Regulated Liability Network has the potential to create a global real-time gross settlement capability. Global real-time gross settlement. Global RTGS. So now we know that the shared ledger, Regulated Liability Network, Regulated Internet of Values, technically the Internet of Value, the Unified Ledger, and the Global Real-Time Gross Settlement, the Global RTGS, are all the same thing. Here in this document, when it's saying that it has the potential to create a Global Real-Time Gross Settlement, has the potential, they're lying to you here. It's not just potential. It is creating it. It's already created. But as I told you before, these guys always talk as if it's theoretical. It's a theory. It's a concept. We're testing it. We're going to see if it could work. The Global Real-Time Gross Settlement system was created years ago. They've been planning it for almost 20 years. I'm going to show you a document here. So it's already, according to the timelines that we've seen from the Hyperledger Foundation, it's already fully laid out right now as we speak. 2025, it's laid out. So when they're saying it could, they're lying to you here. It's all they know how to do, these guys, is lie and deceive. It's all they know how to do, the central bankers. So this is a document I showed you before. This came from the Hyperledger Foundation. It is now called the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. It's the LF Decentralized Trust is what it's called now. This document surfaced about 8 years ago, give or take. It's almost impossible to find it now. So I do apologize if the document is chopped up there. It's just because I had to merge all the screenshots that I had taken from this document because I can't find it anymore. So again, so this is pretty much the most powerful consortium in the world involving all the central banks, commercial bank, tech companies, fintechs, corporations, and on. And now it's called the Decentralized Trust. This is a document that came out. It was specifically referring R3, Ripple, and the XRP Ledger and the Interledger protocol. So it was Ripple, R3, and the Interledger protocol were the main players, technically the main players in building this Internet of Value. So ILP, and remember, like I talked in my other videos, when we see the documents coming from the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, we always see that it's the Interledger protocol that's connecting the unified ledgers. But for now, I just want to jump right here so we don't lose our train of thought here. So this document showed that the global RTGS, remember how I told you this document, the BIS was saying that the Regulated Liability Network could become the global real-time gross settlement. What do you have here, my friends? And I know I showed this for you guys that have seen this before. This is for the people that haven't seen it. So I do apologize for those who've already watched the video, but this is very important to show, because I didn't show it this way. I showed it a bit differently last time. So the global RTGS is the XRP ledger right here. And you have the Interledger protocol, ILP. So the central banks, the RTGS system, all the central banks and the commercial banks, local payments, are connected to the global RTGS, which is the XRP ledger. They're connected via the interledger protocol, ILP, 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 ILP. And at the bottom here, it says that the interledger protocol will enable financial institutions and central banks to make their existing infrastructure and processes interoperable with other currencies, asset classes, and the XRP ledger, the global liquidity marketplace, and the global decentralized RTGS. So right here, this document is showing clearly that the XRP ledger is the global RTGS. And the document I just showed you said that the regulated liability network could become the global RTGS, which is the XRP ledger. So now we know that the shared ledger, Gilbert Verdian said they partnered with R3 for the shared ledger, where all of the tokenized assets will reside. We know that the shared ledger, the RLN, is the same thing because Tony McLaughlin said that. Then we know that it's also called the regulated Internet of Value. And we also know that the BIS, when they talk about the regulated liability network or the shared ledger or Internet of Value, they call it the Unified Ledger. We have another document. It also says that the BIS also says that the regulated liability network or the Unified Ledger, same thing, has the potential to become a global RTGS. And here I have a document showing that the XRP ledger is the global RTGS. And let me show you another document. So this document from the BIS, we always see this document everywhere. This is the Finternet, financial internet. They're calling the Finternet now because they don't want to say Internet of Value. So instead of saying Internet of Value, everybody knows it's Ripple. They call it the Finternet, financial internet, Internet of Value, financial value, financial Internet of Value. They call it the Finternet. You see here, they call it Unified Interledger Protocol now. Like I said, it's the Interledger Protocol. There is no other Interledger Protocol. There's only one, and it's Ripple, the company who built the Interledger Protocol. So they can call it the FART Interledger Protocol. They can call it the PP Interledger Protocol. They call it whatever the heck they want to try to deceive us. So there's only one Interledger Protocol. It's Ripple that built it. The XRP ledger is built on top of the Interledger Protocol, and the XRP ledger has a decentralized exchange built on top of the XRP ledger. Sorry, I said that very quickly. Sorry. The Interledger Protocol was built by Ripple. The XRP ledger is built on top of the Interledger Protocol. So that's why you're seeing here the Unified Ledger being connected via the Interledger Protocol. So this is a better document. I should have showed you this one instead. So the Interledger Protocol is connecting Unified Ledger 1 to Unified Ledger 2. Unified Ledger 1, Unified Ledger 2. Because, as I explained before, the XRP ledger has numerous private ledgers. Central banks are building their central bank digital currencies on private ledgers of the XRP ledger. So they're like a carbon copy clone of the XRP ledger. It has the same features as the XRP ledger, except it's a private ledger. I used to say sidechains, but that's not the proper terminology. I shouldn't call it a sidechain. It's technically a private ledger. Some people would say it's still a sidechain, but I think that the exact proper terminology is to say it's a private ledger because sidechains are slightly different. And we see that from the interviews from Ripple. I showed that in other video, but that's why you see the Interledger Protocol connecting Unified Ledger 1 to Unified Ledger 2. And right here again, you're seeing what? You're seeing this would be a unified ledger here. So this would be the main unified ledger, the XRP ledger. And then you would have ILP here, ILP, and you have central bank, RTGS system, Bank of Japan, Target 2, Fedwire, which is the US. These are the central banks here and their RTGS systems, central banks. So these are private ledgers, private ledgers, private ledger, private ledger. These are unified ledger. And this is the Interledger Protocol connecting to Unified Ledger. So private ledgers or shared ledger, you could call it private ledgers or unified ledgers because again, they're carbon copy clone of the XRP ledger. One more thing you see here, you see this diagram here. This is the Enbridge CBDC project. You see how the central bank, Thai Bank, PRC Bank, HQ Bank, that's the Hong Kong Bank, and the United Emirates Banks. These are the central banks here. You see how they're closer to the Enbridge here? You see how all the central banks here. So this is a central bank here. Let me use this one, for example. HK, let me zoom that in for a minute. You don't want to miss this. So Hong Kong Bank here, that's a commercial bank. And HK, Hong Kong Corporation, that's a commercial bank. So that's a central bank. You notice how the central bank is always closer to the bridge? This is a central bank right here. It's closer to the bridge, right? This is the unified ledger right here. This is the Enbridge. This is the unified ledger right here. This is the XRP ledger. This is the shared ledger. Call it whatever you want. This is the regulated Internet of Value right here. But notice how the central banks are all closer to the unified ledger, to the bridge here. And then the commercial banks are always sitting a bit further The commercial banks are always behind the central banks. You see right here? You see here? These are commercial banks. They're all behind their respective central banks. They're behind. Don't miss this, guys. Watch 1 sec. Okay, so we're going to look at this document here again. You see the global RTGS right here. You see the central banks. This is Bank of Japan, Target 2, Fedwire. This is the Federal Reserve for the US. BAGS, this I think is the UK. And I think this is Russia. But these are all central banks. These are the RTGS. These are central banks. See how the central banks here are right next to the XRP Ledger? They're all next to the XRP Ledger. And you see how the commercial banks here are behind the central banks. So here's the commercial banks. They're behind the central banks. You have commercial banks, central banks, and then you have the XRP Ledger. That's the M bridge right here. So let's look at that again. Exact same design here. You've got the central banks that are closer to the XRP Ledger, and then commercial banks are behind. They're behind. Central banks right next to the XRP Ledger, and then commercial banks are behind the central banks. So the central banks are between the XRP Ledger and the commercial. Central banks are between the XRP Ledger and the commercial banks. So exact same design. And I could show you 100 million pictures like that. So now I'm going to show you a video here. So this is one of the head guys at the BIS. So I think this is the head of technology for the BIS. And he's going to describe the unified ledger, and he's going to explain how the unified ledger replaces SWIFT. And we all know that Ripple replaces SWIFT. Show you a million clips of Brad Garlinghouse saying, we're replacing SWIFT, we're replacing SWIFT. So the unified ledger, the shared ledger, regulated liability network, regulated settlement network, the regulated Internet of Value, which is what it was originally called, but they changed the name because they can't say that. Everybody knows that's Ripple. Those 5 different terminologies, including the Finternet, this is all the XRP ledger. They're using different names to confuse you, like I've said a million times in my videos. Excuse me. And I'm going to keep repeating that. So all of these different words that they're using, it's all the XRP ledger. But Quant Overledger provides the programmability for the money and for the unified ledger. But Quant Overledger is not the unified ledger. And Quant Overledger is not the Finternet. But it is extremely complementary to the Finternet. So I just want to say that for any of you that are in the Quant community that are thinking that the unified ledger or Finternet or shared ledger is Quant, it is not.
Those kind of applications, the canonical application there would be payment versus delivery, where you pay if and only if the seller of the asset will then deliver the security or whatever the asset might be. So these kind of transactions currently are done separately. So there's a messaging network, and you're familiar with SWIFT, probably. But the settlement is done separately through the bookkeeping operations along the chain of financial intermediaries. But if we have the unified ledger that have both central bank money and commercial bank deposits all on the same platform, we can have all of those transactions take place instantaneously at the same time.
So keep in mind, this is the same institution. This is the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS. This is a guy from the BIS talking about unified ledger replacing SWIFT. This is the same institution that's hosting Project Mariana that I was showing you earlier. Project Mariana is talking about a transnational network where all the central banks in the world can do cross-border payments. They can settle wholesale CBDCs against one another. So my friends, I really need your help to get this information out so that the XRP community and everybody else can know that it's all the XRP ledger. This is the most important thing for the XRP community to know right now, because everyone is confused. Some people think, oh, okay, maybe the regulated liability network uses the XRP ledger, and no, it's all the XRP ledger. And only my content is showing that. So I'm asking for your help because I can't do it alone. I can produce the content and I can prepare it, but I can't share it with everybody. So if you could please help me out by sharing this video with everyone. And mainly, most importantly, is really sharing it with the influencers, right? With the XRP influencers, the XRP YouTubers, the big XRP X accounts, people who have big followings on X. And the best way to do it is just you copy paste and you share it on their profiles. You share it on their top 3 posts. So if they tweet something, for example, So you would go here, for example, you search digital asset. So because every one of you knows different YouTubers, different XRP influencers, right? You might know somebody has 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, and they're the ones that are be able to reach the masses because they have their whole following that they can show it to, that they can show clips of my content or watch the whole video, or they can just whatever, do their own video if they want, but just to get the information out. So for example, the best way is you would go find an influencer. If you could do it with like at least 5 or 10, or if some of you can do it with 30 of them, it would be just really appreciated because it's the only way I can get the information out. 4 to 6 million people in the XRP community, I think, even maybe more. And nobody knows this. Everybody's confused about this. And this is the most important point. People need to find out. This is all the same thing. And XRP is the new financial market infrastructure, is the internet of value. And they're deceiving people. So right here, for example, you would go digital asset investor and you would just comment. Basically, copy my video and go into comments and paste my video here. But you'd have to make sure, you'd have to say something like, hey, this is the most important XRP video to watch. You have to say a comment like that to make them realize this is not just an average video just talking about Ripple does cross-border payments. This is a very important video. So you have to make a comment that will make people to watch it. And you would do that for his top 3 videos for digital asset investors. So you would copy paste it here, you would copy paste it here, and you would copy paste it here with the comment. So you would have the comment and the YouTube URL. And then you would do it for as many as you're willing, guys, okay? If you're willing to do it with 30, 40, 50, that's great. It'd be so much appreciated. But if you can at least do it with 5 or 6 or 10 influencers, so again, we all know different influencers, right? So you want to go maybe with Mikkel and XRP Bags, James Rules, so many of them, right? Cobb, XRP Crypto Wolf, whoever are the XRP influencers that you know, right? There's so many of them, right? Big, small, whatever. But let's get the information out, guys. Please help me do this because I'm getting maybe 10,000 views on my YouTube videos. And like I said, the community is 4 to 6 million people, right? Plus the communities that should know the truth about XRP, but they're so blinded about Bitcoin and these other tokens that don't even have 5% of the utility that XRP has. So I'm asking for your help, guys. That's how I'm going to get the message out. This is how I'm going to get this crucial information out to the XRP community. It's only by your help. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your support. I really appreciate all the beautiful comments that you guys are leaving in my channel. It really means a lot. I see them, I read them, I try to respond to every one of them as much as I can, but I'm trying to create a lot of content for you guys at the same time. So sometimes I'm not able to reply to all of them. So as my channel grows, obviously it gets harder and harder to reply to all the comments, but I see them and I just want you to know that I appreciate you very much. And I really appreciate the encouraging words you're leaving. So nice. And so please like and subscribe. I'm wishing you a great night, great evening, great day wherever you are. And God bless you so much. Thank you.